She was just an ordinary girl scrolling through Instagram, watching those dreamy fairy tale weddings, wondering, why can't that be me? And then, like a scene straight out of a movie, he appeared, tall, mysterious, dressed in designer suits, with that irresistible aura of power. He wasn't just rich, he was royalty. At least that's what he said. An Arab prince, heir to a fortune, a man who could turn her life into a fantasy. And oh, did he play the part well? Private jets, five-star hotels, diamond bracelets that made her friends' jaws drop. He whispered sweet promises, painted pictures of golden palaces, told her she was different, special, his queen. And she was falling, fast and deep, into a love story so perfect it almost felt scripted. But that's the thing about scripts. Sometimes they're written for a different ending. And Lisa? Lisa had no idea that hers was about to take a turn so shocking, so humiliating, that it would leave her questioning everything, including the very man she thought she loved. The proposal was nothing short of a spectacle. It wasn't in some candlelit restaurant or on a quiet beach. No, he did it on the deck of a luxury yacht in Dubai, with fireworks exploding behind them, a string quartet playing in the background, and a diamond ring so massive it could blind someone in direct sunlight. Cameras flashed, influencers gushed, and within hours their engagement was trending online. The luckiest girl in the world, they called her. And Lisa, she believed it. I mean, who wouldn't? She was about to marry a prince, a real-life prince, dripping in wealth, wrapped in mystery, with a voice that made every word sound like a promise. And he made so many promises. You'll never have to worry about money again. You'll live like a queen. You are my destiny. Her friends had their doubts, of course. Isn't this too fast? Have you actually met his family? Why does no one know his full name? But love makes you deaf to logic, and Lisa had already convinced herself this was fate. And so the wedding planning began. And when I say wedding, I don't mean some elegant little ceremony with close friends. No, this was an event, an extravaganza, gold invitations with real 24-karat gold leaf, a venue that looked like something out of a royal fantasy, with silk curtains, imported roses, and a literal waterfall cascading down the ballroom walls. And the guests, let's just say, if you didn't have at least 1 million followers, you weren't getting in. Lisa's dress alone was rumored to cost over $200,000, handcrafted by an exclusive designer who only worked with royalty. And the wedding day itself? Pure magic. The way he looked at her as she walked down the aisle, the whispered words in her ear, the way his hand never left hers. It was like something out of a dream. The world was watching. People called it the wedding of the year. And Lisa, she was floating, completely lost in the fantasy, completely unaware that the very foundation of her perfect life was nothing more than an illusion. But then came the wedding night, the moment when the fantasy was supposed to become reality, when she was supposed to step into her new life as a princess. Only something was off. The moment they left the reception, his entire energy changed. The warmth in his eyes? Gone. The charm? Replaced with something colder, more distant. Instead of leading her into a lavish royal suite, he took her somewhere unexpected, a private villa far away from the palace. And that's when the mask began to slip. The hesitation in his voice, the nervous glances, the way he kept avoiding her questions. "There's something I need to tell you," he finally said. Her stomach dropped, and in that moment, Lisa knew something was very, very wrong. Lisa's heart pounded in her chest. She had spent months dreaming of this night, of stepping into her new life as a princess, of waking up in the arms of the man she loved. But as she followed him through the dimly lit corridors of the secluded villa, something felt off. This wasn't the palace she had imagined, the luxurious, golden halls she had seen in pictures. Where were they? Instead, she found herself in a much smaller, more discreet residence. No staff, no extravagant decor, just an eerie silence that sent a chill down her spine. "Why aren't we at the palace?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Her prince hesitated, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "Lisa, there's something I need to tell you. The way he said it made her stomach drop. A confession? Now? After all this? She felt her fingers tighten around the beaded embroidery of her $200,000 dress. What do you mean? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He wouldn't look her in the eyes. That was the first sign. The second? The way he exhaled, like someone about to admit something they knew would destroy everything. And then, the words that shattered her fairy tale. I'm not who you think I am. Time stopped. The room seemed to spin around her. What? She managed to choke out. He finally looked at her then, but the face she had once adored now felt like that of a stranger. Lisa, I'm not a prince. The words echoed in her head over and over, as if her brain refused to process them. Not a prince? Not a prince. But that made no sense. He had money, luxury, power. The media called him a royal. The wedding was fit for a king. She searched his face for a sign that this was some cruel joke, but all she saw was a man bracing for impact. Then, who the hell are you? She finally spat, taking a step back. He let out a breath, ran a hand down his face. I'm a businessman. I own a few companies. I have some connections in the Middle East, but I'm not royalty, Lisa. Her pulse was hammering in her ears. So everything was a lie? He flinched at her words. No, I love you. You just what? She snapped, the weight of her expensive diamond ring suddenly unbearable on her finger. You lied to me? You let me believe I was marrying a prince. Let the whole world believe it? Her voice was rising now, years of dreams crumbling into dust. Lisa, I never said I was a prince. People just assumed, and I didn't correct them. His excuse sounded pathetic even to his own ears. She let out a bitter laugh. So you let me walk into a marriage based on a lie? You let me think I was marrying into a royal family when in reality, I was just marrying some rich fraud? The word hit him like a slap. Lisa, I love you. I wanted to tell you, but by the time I realized how much I cared about you, I was scared I'd lose you. She shook her head, stepping away from him like he was a stranger. You already lost me. She turned, storming toward the door, but his next words stopped her cold. Lisa, wait, there's more. Her fingers hovered over the doorknob. More? Her entire relationship was already crumbling. What could be worse? But when she turned back to face him, the expression on his face told her that the worst was yet to come. Lisa, I'm in trouble. Her heart pounded harder. What do you mean, trouble? He exhaled. I have debts. Big ones. I thought... He stopped himself, but Lisa had already pieced it together. Oh my God, she whispered. You married me for money, didn't you? His silence was answer enough. Rage surged through her veins. You married me for money? He reached for her, but she yanked herself away. Lisa, I swear I love you. I needed help. I thought if I married you, the wedding gifts, the business deals, the sponsorships, it would fix everything. Her breath hitched. So I was never your queen, just your ticket out of debt. He shook his head desperately. No, it wasn't like that. It started that way, but I fell in love with you. Please, you have to believe me. Tears burned in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. I don't have to believe anything, because you're nothing but a liar. She turned on her heel, storming out of the villa, her wedding gown dragging behind her like the ghost of a dream that had died before it even began. But she wasn't just leaving that villa. She was leaving him, leaving the lies, leaving the humiliation of being played like a fool. Outside, the night air hit her like a slap. She pulled out her phone, her hands shaking. The entire world had watched her fairy tale unfold. Well, now they would watch it burn. Her fingers hovered over the screen. She could expose him. She could end his reputation with a single post. But then, another thought crept in. What if she played this smarter? She didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she lifted her chin, wiped away a smudge of mascara, and smirked. You know what? She murmured to herself. I might just be richer than a prince after all. Lisa stood outside the villa, her wedding dress dragging across the cold marble steps, her pulse racing. The weight of the last few minutes crashed over her like a tidal wave. But instead of breaking down, something inside her shifted. She wasn't going to be the helpless, heartbroken bride. Number, if he had played her, she would play the game even better. He thought she would walk away humiliated. Not a chance. She wiped her tears, squared her shoulders, and pulled out her phone. The entire world had seen her wedding. Millions had gushed over her royal love story. Now she had the power to control the narrative. She could expose him, turn him into the biggest fraud of the decade. Sponsors would drop him. Business deals would collapse. He would be ruined. And the irony? He had married her thinking she would be his financial escape. Instead, she would be his downfall. But then another idea hit her, one that made her lips curl into a wicked smile. What if she played this smarter? What if, instead of destroying him instantly, she made him suffer first? What if she milked the situation for every advantage it could give her? If she left now, the scandal would still be huge. But if she played along for just a little longer, she could walk away not just as a victim, but as the real winner. Because let's be real, scandals could be profitable. Lisa took a deep breath and turned back to the villa, where her so-called prince stood frozen, watching her carefully. He looked desperate, afraid of what she might do next. And that gave her all the power. "You need me," she said, her voice sharp and cold. "More than I ever needed you." He swallowed hard. "Lisa, Shut up." She crossed her arms, staring him down. "You want to fix your little financial disaster? Fine, but here's how this is going to go." His brows furrowed, confused. "What do you mean?" "Oh, you thought I'd just walk away, cry in a corner, and let you move on? No, sweetheart. You want this marriage? Then we're going to make it work. On my terms." She took a slow step forward, watching the fear flicker across his face. "You are going to pay for every lie you told me. And you're going to make me richer than I ever dreamed of. Because if I walk away now, you lose everything instantly. But if I stay, I can make you dance like a puppet until I decide I'm done." He looked at her stunned. This wasn't the broken, betrayed woman he had expected. This was a woman who had just realized she had all the power. And he was trapped. "So what's it going to be, Prince?" she whispered, tilting her head. "Do we put on a show, or do I burn your empire to the ground tonight?" Silence stretched between them. He blinked, caught off guard, his carefully crafted world tilting beneath him. This wasn't the reaction he had expected. He had braced himself for tears, for screaming, maybe even for a dramatic exit. But this was different. This was dangerous. Lisa wasn't breaking. She was taking control. And the worst part? He had no choice but to let her. "Lisa, He hesitated, searching for words, but she was already a step ahead. "Save it," she cut him off, her tone sharper than the diamonds on her ring. "You had months to come clean. You had months to tell me the truth. But you didn't. You played me. You used me. And now I'm going to do the same to you." Her words sent a chill down his spine. He had seen Lisa as sweet, naive, desperate for a fairy tale. But this woman standing in front of him, she was something else entirely. She was furious, yes, but she was also calculating. And that terrified him more than anything. What do you want?" he finally asked, his voice quieter now. She smirked. "Oh, now you're ready to negotiate." She took a step closer, her heels clicking against the marble floor. "Here's how this is going to work. You're going to keep playing the role of the perfect husband. We're going to continue this fairy tale for the cameras, for the press, for everyone who's watching. You're going to spoil me, shower me with gifts, make sure the world believes I'm the luckiest woman alive." He swallowed hard, his mind racing. "And if I don't?" She tilted her head, her smirk widening. "Then I tell the world the truth. I expose you. Every business deal you're relying on, gone. Every brand that wants to collaborate with you, vanished. Every single person who respects you, they'll know you as nothing more than a con artist who fooled the world." She leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a whisper. "And trust me, I will make sure you never recover from it." His jaw clenched. He wanted to argue, to push back, but deep down, he knew she had him trapped. His businesses were already on the edge. He had counted on this marriage to fix everything, to secure deals, to build his empire. If she walked away now, exposing him, it would all crumble. He would lose everything. "You really want to stay in this marriage just to destroy me?" he asked, incredulous. Lisa laughed softly, a sound laced with amusement and danger. "Oh no, darling. I want to stay in this marriage to make sure I come out on top. You see, you thought you were marrying your way into wealth, but now you're the one who's going to be used." He exhaled sharply, dragging a hand down his face. "And how long do you plan to keep this up?" Lisa's eyes sparkled with mischief. "As long as it benefits me. The second I get bored, the second I decide I've taken enough from you, that's when I'll leave. And trust me, when I do, I'll make sure you're left with nothing." A heavy silence followed. He had lost. She had won. And the best part? The whole world would still see her as the innocent bride, the devoted wife. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, she was the one pulling the strings, the real queen of this game. Lisa took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and smiled sweetly. "Now go run me a bath, dear husband. After all, a princess deserves to be pampered." Lisa watched as he hesitated, his mind clearly racing through every possible escape. But there wasn't one. Not anymore. She had him trapped in a game he thought he was playing alone. And now she was the one making the rules. "Well," she prompted, raising an eyebrow, "that bath isn't going to run itself." He swallowed hard, then nodded slowly, finally accepting his fate. Without another word, he turned and disappeared into the bathroom. The moment he was out of sight, Lisa let out a breath, her entire body trembling. Not from fear, not from sadness, but from adrenaline, power, the thrill of flipping the script. He had underestimated her, assumed she would crumble the second the illusion was shattered. But instead, she had become the one thing he hadn't prepared for, a woman who refused to be a victim. The next morning, Lisa woke up in silk sheets, the scent of expensive cologne lingering in the air. She turned to see her husband sitting on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. He looked exhausted, like a man who had spent the entire night trying to figure out how he had lost control. She almost felt bad for him. Almost. "Good morning, darling," she purred, stretching like a cat. He glanced at her, his jaw tight. "Lisa, about last night." "No need to rehash," she interrupted, waving a hand. "Just remember, smile for the cameras, shower me with gifts, and make sure the world sees us as the perfect couple." He exhaled sharply but nodded. "Fine." Lisa grinned. "Good boy." Over the next few weeks, Lisa played her part to perfection. To the public, she was the blissful new bride, the modern Cinderella who had married into wealth and royalty. Paparazzi snapped photos of them at luxury resorts, hand in hand. She posted carefully curated Instagram stories of her husband, surprising her with designer bags, diamond necklaces, and exotic vacations. But behind closed doors, she was bleeding him dry. Every time they stepped out in public, she made sure he spent money, ridiculous amounts of money. Private jet trips to Paris just because, an entire penthouse renovation to suit her taste, lavish charity donations in her name, solidifying her public image as the gracious, generous princess. She insisted on a new car, then changed her mind and demanded another one a week later. She knew his financial situation was crumbling, but he couldn't refuse her without risking everything. And the best part? He had no choice but to keep smiling for the cameras. It wasn't long before the cracks in his empire started to show. Business deals fell through. Investors grew suspicious. Lisa had strategically ensured that all their wealth flaunting made headlines, putting him under immense pressure to keep up appearances. And when whispers began to circulate that his finances weren't as solid as he claimed, she knew it was time to strike the final blow. One evening, as they sat across from each other in their extravagant villa, Lisa took a sip of wine and sighed dramatically. "You know, I've been thinking." He looked up from his untouched meal, wary. "About what?" She tilted her head, studying him. "About us, about my future, and I've realized I deserve better." His face paled. "Lisa, no?" She held up a hand. Oh, don't beg. It's pathetic. This marriage was never real, remember? You made sure of that the second you built it on lies. But we can fix this, he insisted. You said you wanted to win. If you leave now, you won't get anything. Lisa smiled, slow and triumphant. Oh, sweetheart, I've already won. She pulled out her phone and slid it across the table. His eyes widened as he took in the headlines flashing across the screen. Fake prince exposed? Sources say he's not who he claims to be. Lavish lifestyle, empty bank accounts. Is this royal marriage a scam? He looked up at her, panicked. You? Me? She interrupted, feigning innocence. Oh no, I would never leak such a thing. But let's just say, the right people know the truth now. He shot up from his chair, knocking over his wine glass. Lisa, you don't understand. This could ruin me. She leaned back unbothered. That's the idea. Lisa didn't wait for him to recover. She had already packed. Her exit had been planned down to the last detail. That night, as he scrambled to contain the PR disaster, she walked out of the villa, a smirk on her lips and a bank account that had never looked healthier. But before she left, she turned one last time and delivered her final words. Next time, don't underestimate the woman in the fairy tale. Months later, Lisa sat on a sun-drenched balcony overlooking the ocean, a mimosa in one hand, her phone in the other. She had turned her experience into a best-selling book, How to Beat a Prince at His Own Game. Publishers had thrown millions at her for the rights. Streaming platforms were already discussing a documentary. Her ex-husband? Oh, he had tried to salvage his reputation, but the internet never forgets. His name was now synonymous with fraud. His businesses collapsed, his so-called friends disappeared, and last she heard, he was somewhere in Europe, trying to rebuild from scratch. Lisa, however, Lisa was thriving, wealthy, powerful, untouchable. And as she took a sip of her mimosa, she couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the princess doesn't need a prince. Sometimes she just needs to become the queen. And that, my friends, is how you turn betrayal into a power move. What would you have done in Lisa's place? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you love stories with twists, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon, because trust me, the next one is even crazier.